Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Andrée Martin, your leadership mindset and golf performance coach. Andrée is an LPGA Class A life member, a nationally recognized top 50 golf teacher and expert, and a member of the Maine Golf Hall of Fame. Recognizing golf's value as a business tool in today's competitive marketplace, Andrée works with individuals, groups, corporate or organizational clients to create educational and team-building programs that enhance the professional success of aspiring executives. Now, you know when Andrée is on our show, it is nothing less than Mindset Monday. This is a recurring feature of the Success Insight podcast, and we get to chat with Andrée about the confluence of the profession and the enjoyment of the sport of golf and that of business. And so we are exceptionally fortunate to have someone of Andrée's caliber on the Success Insight podcast. And so without further ado, Andrée, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Howard. It's great to join you and to brainstorm how we can best manage our mind in business and in sport.
Most definitely. And so what are we going to chat about today?
Today's topic is about coming back to center. And you might say, what does that mean? Coming back to center in golf and sport. It's so easy to get distracted. If you get a wayward shot, how do you get yourself back? And what does back to center truly mean in golf? And how should it mean for your average golfers to up-level their game? How should it mean for a business executive or entrepreneur to up-level their game? And it's so easy to get spread so thin. It's so easy to think ahead. It's so easy to think about your score that you just had if it wasn't so great, or if you're having a series of birdies, how do you sustain yourself and keep your center going and in the zone through the whole round?
You know, I was just thinking about something. I have a client that I am coaching, and she had gone off and done an interview. And I think after the interview, she wasn't, I would say, excited about how it went. And the mind just started making up stories of its own. Oh, it was so bad. It was this, it was that. And she even got a letter, an email back from the organization thanking her for coming in for the interview. And, oh, by the way, you know, there's a little delay on this project, but we have other projects that are coming up. If you'd be interested in them, we'd still would like to keep you on our list for going forward with the interview process. And because she felt in her mind this was not a successful interview, she started making up these stories. And I remember chatting with her. We were on a mastermind call, and there was some other of our members on the call. And I said, that was a great letter. You should be proud of that. And so as you were sharing about this mindset, when we have this blow up hole or something, is we go off and we just catastrophize it. And it's like, that is the absolute wrong thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, even a bad shot, it doesn't even have to be a blow up hole. In business, we learn from our mistakes, right? Not everything is going to be all roses. And yet when it is all roses, how do we capitalize on that and sustain it? It's all about bringing yourself back to center. How'd you get there to begin with? Oftentimes, I know in the past, we've talked about think box and go box. Well, there's truly a reason for that preparation, because it's so easy to think ahead. It's like, oh, I just had a crappy hole, or, oh my gosh, I've just had a string of birdies. Let's keep this going. But how did you get there? How did you do it? It usually isn't thinking. It usually isn't. Our last episode was about being and doing, right? Coming back to center is you being physically present in the moment, like we are in this conversation for this podcast, and focusing on the now, not the past, because the past is past. The future's not here yet. And it's the same in business. If anything that COVID has taught us, it's nothing is the same and nothing's as it was. So how are we reinventing ourselves and creating opportunity going forward?
You said physically being present, but I do want to clarify. I think it's physically and mentally being present because it's two different things.
You're absolutely right. It is both.
Okay. And out on the course, how do you increase the size and the opportunities with this Think Box, Go Box? How do you make sure it's more encompassing for the work that you're going to do, whether it's on the course or inside the office or boardroom?
I find people hold their breath a lot. You ever hold your breath when you're thinking hard, Howard?
Sometimes I forget to breathe. Yeah.
Yes. And and it seems like it's a big occurrence in sports, but when I look back over the people I've coached and the people I've worked with, and then the executives that come to me, even in a golf lesson, they're holding their breath. It's like they're rushing to get there, and then they get there, and then their breathing's up in their throat, and you can't do anything when your breathing's up in your throat. You're doing everything you can to catch your breath. So just coming back to center means being mindful of the present moment, but also taking a moment to truly breathe and take it in. And then as you go out, lowering that back into your chest. In, just taking a couple deep breaths as we're talking right now, out. Notice how that just chills you out. And it can be something just as simple as that. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've got this shot. I can do this. Or, oh, that's what we need to add to this project. Or that's the story I need to bring into this next speech. Or this is the element we need to bring into the overall scope of the project we're putting together. Just the moment of just taking a moment and focus on the bullseye. So the breathing gets you into the moment. So let me take you back to golf for a moment. From behind in what I have called the think box often, you want to not only visualize your shot, but take a deep breath. And as you're taking that breath in and out, you're grounding out all the tension that's created by the anxiety that's occurring. And what we're trying to do is transfer you into the space that you are when you're in the zone. We're in the zone. And think about this, Howard. You've done a lot of podcasts. It's gotten very natural for you, and you've gotten better and better at it as you've gone. Think about the first few podcasts you did. You were probably holding your breath. You were thinking about what you were doing. And now it's just like a regular conversation, and things just pop into your mind as it occurs with the subject, with the interview that you're producing. All of that helps you come back to center. But it's also important for us as coaches to pull out from the client, what is it that gets your juices going? And how do you sustain that? And you're vividly focusing on the shot, on the project, on the presentation, on the speech that you're wanting to deliver. Your eye is on the bullseye. Your eye is on where you're going. But in doing it, you're fully present in the moment.
As a golfer, or whether you're an amateur, a pro, or the business leader, owner, et cetera, is, having this routine and practicing it seems to be such an important factor in our success, whether it is in the sport or whether it is in business. And really to practice our breathing techniques, our visualization of what we want to achieve from either the speech, presentation, the shot, and doing that preparation, preparing during this think box, whatever those steps are in the process. But then once you hit the end of that step, then you just, as we did on the previous episode, don't think, you just go do it.
Right. You step in and trust it. All the practice and preparation you've done has got you ready for that moment. And then you just, in the breathing, it gets you in the flow, it gets you in your rhythm, it gets you in your tempo, so that as you visualize the shot you're going to take, as you visualize the presentation, the speech, the team meeting, the leadership that you're offering the entire company, you just step in and do it. It becomes automatic.
Out on the course, let's say your student does just that. And let's just say, circumstance be as it may, I think that's a correct choice of words. Let's just say something happens that doesn't go exactly as planned. As their coach, what's your next move with them to help them to recenter and go on to the next hole or to the next shot?
Sure. So you're going back, and then you go back to a time where you did it really well. And what's done is done. You can't do anything about that. So how are you going to move forward? And the breathing probably has jumped you back up into your throat, out of the center chest. And so by coming back to center and taking those deep breaths and settling back into the focus of what you're trying to create, you're able to come from that space that much quicker, more easily for the next shot at hand. And you just let go what just occurred, and you go to a time where you created it and you did it great. And I'll oftentimes do, this will be a great tip for the listening audience, your relaxation, which includes your breathing, on a scale of 1 to 10, when you do it well, what number, if 10 is holding your breath and super, super tight, are you when you're doing it well and you're in the zone? I've never had anybody tell me they're a 9 or a 10. When you're really in your zone, in your delivery, what number are you, Howard?
I'm rocking it.
Yeah.
I'm a 10.
Okay. But if a 10 is super tight and really tense, you're down on the lower end of the scale. I think what you really meant was more like a 1 or 2, right?
Right. If I'm really tense, I am a 1 or a 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing is the rhythm and the tempo. So the tension levels create fast tempo. It throws the body out of sync. Mm-hmm. You want your hands, shoulders, hips, everything working as a team together in sync so that you're optimizing your power. You're leveraging all of your power angles so that you come off with the best shot possible with as much club head speed as possible. And in order to do that, you've got to have that calm center. Mm-hmm. And then it reoccurs each and every time, more and more.
Very good. As we are having these conversations, and one thing is crystal clear, there's just a lot of recurring themes, visualization, breathing, rhythm, tempo, and learning to recognize when we are out of, I don't know what we would call it, out of sync perhaps, but that is so key in, the success out on the course or even inside the office or when we're getting ready to deliver a presentation or facilitate a meeting, do a workshop. That's half the battle right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So, Andrée, before we sign off for today's episode, coming back to center, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
Sure. They can come to my Facebook site, and I also have a YouTube site, and also you can find me on LinkedIn.
And you have a website, andreegolf.com?
Many ways. Stay in touch.
Yeah. All right, folks. We have just been chatting with Andrée Martin, our leadership, mindset, and golf performance coach. Today's episode of Mindset Monday was coming back to center, and all these words that, man, they should be so familiar to us by now. This visualization, breathing, rhythm, tempo, and this applies not only out on the golf course, but in your professional lives as well. And when we're in the zone and we're paying attention and we're cognizant of how are we doing in the moment, and if perhaps something doesn't go right, how do we come back to center and remind ourselves about visualizing really what we intended to achieve and getting back into some good breathing rhythms and tempo of the work and following through what we're doing. This is so very important. So I hope you were able to get some insights from today's episode with Andrée. We will be back with her on another episode of Mindset Monday, hopefully in the coming weeks. So if you would like to listen to our previous episodes with Andrée, please check out our podcast library on successinsightpodcast.com. You can visit us on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We have Success Insight podcast pages there, as well as the leading podcast sites, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. And you can also find us on our YouTube page, Success Insight Podcast. So folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a safe day, make it a phenomenal one, practice social distancing, and wear your mask. And again, wherever you are, just take care of yourselves, okay? And we'll see you on the next episode of the Success Insight Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.